Hey guys, it's Cherie. I know it's been quite some time since I recorded for 10 of Water Astrology, but I wanted to just drop in and give what's coming up for May. With COVID-19, it's just been like hectic for everybody. 2020, the astrology for 2020 is heavy. It does not let up. So, but we will have some moments where we can breathe a little bit. But as a whole, 2020 is a very challenging year astrologically. So just keep that in mind as you are navigating challenges, and as things are being thrown your way. You're not crazy. The year is just a kind of wild, unprecedented year per se. So for May, here's what we have. We have on the 7th of May a full moon in the sign of Scorpio at about 16, 17 degrees. Full moons illuminate things, like they shine a light and bring things to the surface. They're good times for releasing, cleaning up, charging crystals. If you do those types of things, that's what full moons are often good for. So with this full moon in Scorpio, Scorpio is a sign that likes to, ride undercurrents and pull things up from the surface. So, you very well could get some surprising news over this week and early next week, just being in like that full moon phase. So just be aware of that. And then May 11th, we have Saturn in Aquarius, because Saturn just moved into Aquarius a few weeks ago. Is going to retrograde in Aquarius, and we're in the early degrees of Aquarius. So those of you that have Saturn in Aquarius, you have entered your Saturn return. So it's going to retrograde for the next few months on May 11th, and then as it goes direct again, it's moving back into Capricorn to finish its stay in Capricorn. And then in December, Saturn will move back into Aquarius for its final stay. And then also on the 11th, we have Mercury entering in its home sign of Gemini. So, we're already in that Venus retrograde shadow, which is in Gemini. Venus is in Gemini currently, and then we will have Mercury enter Gemini, which is its home sign. So communication will be a big issue over the next couple of weeks. Following suit, about 2 days later, on May 13th, we will have Venus retrograde in Gemini. Venus does not retrograde every year. It's about every 18 to 19 months. So you don't get a Venus retrograde every year, but in 2020, amongst everything else, we will have Venus retrograding in Gemini. So, Venus is the planet that likes to connect. It likes to join. It also, rules over our money, not just love, but things we like, and also our finances. So with Venus being retrograde in Gemini, you may have issues coming up with money, also with like your relationships. And with it being in Gemini, and then we have Mercury going into Gemini like 2 days before, communication issues will more than likely surface. Just don't get too ahead of yourself. We have Saturn retrograde, Venus retrograding. There's 2 planets right there. Retrogrades are good for reviewing, like the word redo, review, revamp. Anything that you can just look over. Make sure you're looking over things carefully. I will hope right now you're not running out and just blowing money. I know many people have gotten a stimulus check or are waiting for one. Just think about we have a lot of planets that are in Capricorn or things under Saturn's influence. Saturn is like practical. think of how you can be practical with your money, or practical in like your communication and your relationships. This is not really the time to swing all the way left and then all the way right. Like, you need to have like some happy mediums in there. Like, some gray areas will be okay right now. Not confusing like gray areas, but just to give you like some balance in there. That's not it for me. So on the 14th, Jupiter, our daddy of expansion, our optimism, will also retrograde. So, it's not really the time to overdo things or swing too far left or too far right. You just want to make sure that you're looking over what you do. Please double check, back up like devices and things like that. Even though it's not Mercury retrograde, we have Mercury entering into Gemini. We have a Venus retrograde, which is in Gemini. So, Gemini rules communication and short distance travel. Just be mindful of what you're doing with money and how you're communicating with people, and things of that sort. We will have the Sun enter Gemini, but Venus is retrograde. So, chatty Gemini likes to communicate, go out, learn, do things. It just may be a little hang-ups here and there with Venus being retrograde, and little hang-ups with money. The best thing that I do like to suggest, if you have your natal chart, take a look at where Gemini is, which house Gemini rules in your chart, to see how this retrograde may affect you. And then also just take a look at where Venus is in your chart also. Aquarius, look at where Aquarius is, just because we have that Saturn influence right now. And then end of the month, Mercury will enter Cancer's watery fields. Like, so our communication may get more sensitive and emotional, which could, end up igniting some little fires here and there, with Venus being retrograde in the sign of Gemini, being Gemini, ruling communication, how we learn, just quick like movement things. Think of it that way. So I would just suggest, just laying low, being very practical right now, and reworking things. These outside planets like Saturn, Jupiter, we had Pluto retrograde into April. So these outside planets, they will stay retrograde for like 4 or 5 months, and they are making changes within the masses. So make sure you're doing your part. Just slow down and take it a day at a time. And your Venus retrograde, it ends in June, so it's not like 4 or 5 months like the outside planets, but it's your inner planets where you tend to feel things like Mercury and Mars and Venus. Mars will retrograde later this year too, so like I said, 2020 is very interesting with the astrology. I didn't want to hold anybody too long. I will definitely going to work on recording a little more and just sharing what I know. If you would like a natal chart reading, or just like a transit report to see how Venus retrograde can affect you personally, definitely check me out at my site is up and running now. It's www.tenofwater.com, and that's TENOFWATER.com. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Also, I'm also on Facebook under 10 of Water. Again, it's Cherie. If you would like a reading, please check me out. I will make sure I keep you posted as the year goes on, just because 2020 is wild. So I do want to share the things that I know. But thank you for tuning in. And I'll be back. Happy retrograde season.